Okay, so to stay closer to the curb, first you have to lower the left-hand mirror, like so. So you can see there the door handle is in the middle of the mirror, measuring from top to bottom. So what this gives you is a much better view of the curb, and obviously also gives you a better impression of how to judge it in relation to how close the car is to the curb. And what you've got to do then at this point is the curb's on the left and I need to get closer to it, so you need to turn left towards the curb. Okay, so as I start moving, look, I've put some left turn on. I'm keeping that on, keeping it on, keeping it on. I'm looking to get the door handle, the front door handle you see there, touching the curb. About there, so right in the middle. So that's took my back left of the car close. Now I've got to turn right to bring the car away from the curb and round, so the front of the car round parallel to the back. So as I start moving there, I've just turned the wheel to the right, and look how the car's coming round parallel to the curb. Just waiting till it looks parallel. See, I've got a little strip of road just between the car and the curb there, if you can see, and then I'll just straighten up there. Okay, so you can see there's the tiniest little strip. Let's just move it closer there. Tiniest little strip of road just between the car and the curb. So my tyres are really close, but they're not actually touching. So this is how it looks when the car is within 1 to 2 inches of the curb. So when you're parked up and it's straight, one of the ways you know, apart from looking at your left mirror, which if I turn and look there, you can see the car is nicely parallel to the curb. If I swing it forward to the right, you can notice here, I've mentioned this in a previous video about parking on the curb. You can see where the curb is just here up ahead. So it's in line with this little central windscreen wiper bit here. Okay. Now, what I'm going to show you in a minute is an angle of where it's going to be if you're angled, or if you're angled either facing towards the curb at the front or away from the curb at the front. So essentially what the curb's going to be, the curb's either going to be on this side a little bit, or it's going to be on this side here. Okay, so this is what it looks like when you've parked up on the left, but you're too far from the curb, but not just too far from the curb, you're also angled away from the curb at the front. So if you notice now, the curb's somewhere over here, where we need the curb closer to this middle section here, the windscreen wiper there. So if I transfer and turn and look at the left mirror, you can see there, for example, we're angled towards the curb at the back. So the back of the car is facing towards the curb on the left, but the front of the car has to be angled and facing to the right. So turning it back there again, you can just see where the curve is. Just to reiterate, it's this side here. You're either too far away or you're actually angled away from the curb. Okay, so looking at this is clearly an angle where the back of the car is facing towards the curb. So in this moment, what you'd have to do, because you look at a minute, the back tyre's not really close enough as well. You'd initially want to just back up in a straight line, because that angle you've got there will take you closer to the curb here. But when it obviously gets close enough, what you must do at this point, obviously because you're angled towards the curb, is turn right, which is away from the curb. Okay, now another thing people struggle with is how to judge an angle towards the curb or away from the curb, and which way to steer the wheel to then basically correct that angle. Right, so this angle that you're looking at the moment is an angle that is facing towards the curb. So the car is angled towards the curb on the left. So I obviously don't want to steer left, because that's going to actually take me even closer to the curb. Because if I steered left, this is how it would look. Look how I'm actually going closer to the curb, and that's not correcting the problem. Okay, so if I go back forwards again to where I just was, which is about there, right, so I'm definitely angled still towards the curb, which is angled to the left. So to get rid of that angle, I must turn away from the curb, which is turning right. So if I turn the wheel to the right, well, first I'll just let it go a bit closer, let that door handle just touch the curb again there. Now I'll turn the wheel to the right, and you can see the car just gradually coming round parallel to the curb, which is about there. Okay, so you see how that looks really parallel. Let me just zoom in again. Very, very close. You can see there's a little strip of road just between the car and the curb though. to ensure that I'm not touching, but I am nice and close, just within about an inch, half an inch of the curb. Okay, so this is what it looks like when you are facing towards the curb at the front, but the back of the car is facing away from the curb at the back. So you can see where the curb is now. We told you needed the curb somewhere here, but now if you notice, the curb is a bit further ahead here. So it's just right of this marker here where we needed it previously when we knew it was straight and parallel. Then if I twist it and just turn and look at the side mirror, you can see then the angle. So I'm clearly facing at that moment away from the curb, if you notice. So that's how I know from looking at the side mirror. But also, like I said, when you look at the middle bit of the windscreen, you can just see where the curb is there. It's just too far to the right of that central marker. So I know that I'm not straight when I can see it and notice where the curb is there. Okay, so this is what it clearly looks like when the back of the car is angled to the right, which is away from the curb. So if you notice there, the front left tire is actually really close, but the back right, there's quite a significant difference. So in this moment, obviously you would have to, because the car is facing away from the curb to the right, you must initially, when reversing, turn the wheel to the left to start getting it closer to the curb. Now initially, because you're quite far away at the back initially, what you do, once you've got rid of the angle when you turn left, the car would probably be a similar distance away from the curb where that back tyre is at the moment, also at the front. So you'd also have to leave the turn on to start angling the car towards the curb to get it closer. Once you've got close enough, you'd obviously then turn right to bring the front of the car back in line with the back, and then obviously straighten up once you are parallel. But initially with this angle, what you must do is start turning it towards the curb, which is to the left. Now with this angle, you can see I'm clearly angled away from the curb. It looks really far away. It's only because the back of the car is a lot further away than the front. So this is what it looks like if you're angled away. Now if I'm angled away from the curb, that means I'm angled to the right. So what I must do to correct is obviously turn to the left. Okay, so if I turn the wheel to the left, watch what happens. The back of the car starts to first get parallel to the curb. Notice the car and the curb now look parallel to each other. Then if you look, if I leave that left turn on, it's now going closer to the curb. So I'm leaving that turn on again until that door handle touches the curb there. Now I'm going to turn the wheel the other way. So it's bringing it round now, parallel to the curb, keeping it nice and close, if you can see. There we go. Then straighten up. Okay, so again, if I zoom in, nice and close, just a little strip of road between the car and the curb. Okay, now what a lot of my students worry about is how close they need to be to the curb when not just parking on the left, but also doing, say, like a reverse park exercise, like a parallel park, or the park on the right exercise. So you can see there, what I've got there is I've got the car part within a grid or a drain's width of the curb. Okay, so you can see where the grid is here. You can see where my tyres are. So it's around about, let's say about a foot, maybe a little bit more than a foot from the curb. Now, you wouldn't really want to be parking. This is not best practice in general everyday life, but for a test purpose, the examiner's not looking for perfection regarding parking. As long as you get it within about this grid's width of the curb, the examiners are generally happy with that. Now, obviously, it's down to certain examiners' perspective and their sort of subjective opinion of it, but as long as you get it within around about this distance, you should be okay. I won't go any further than this. I would aim as your standard to be about half a grid, so obviously about here. And obviously for general driving, you want to be getting really close, so within an inch or two of the curb there as well. For general test purposes, if you can keep it no more than a grid's width or a drain's width from the curb, most examiners will be happy with that on the UK driving test.